Hi, welcome to Atoms of Earth. This is Ed Massey, and we're talking here with Mr. Adam Marsland. Say hi, Adam.
Hello.
Hey, listen, I'm so glad to have you on here because obviously I've been a big fan of yours over the years, and I think it's been a long time since I bumped into you. I think it was like Sacramento, early 2000s with the Chaos Band. I think you were touring then, and
We actually we recorded a lyric of yours, I think.
oh yeah, that's right. Oh,
Didn't we? Yeah.
you had that
Yeah.
contest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still have that in my iTunes. I gotta go
Yeah.
look that up. It's probably
I
under
we
Ed,
dug
man.
that out. We dug that out because before I left the U.S., we did this to raise some money. I did this sort of 3 disc rarities thing, and we found
Oh,
that, and we stuck it on there. I probably owe you
really?
20 cents in royalties.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Pay up.
yeah, but it was funny because I'd completely forgotten about it, and I sent it around to the band, and I said, "Hey, remember this?" So it
Oh,
was
that's
pretty wild.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was super happy about that, man. And the song sounded great. Thank you so much.
sure.
Sounded great. Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing now first because I'm kind of excited about this show you have here. And Adam walks around, and I've watched a
Hmm.
few of the new episodes, and I watched one actually yesterday, and it was the one where it starts off with the camel.
Yeah, that's the newest one. Yeah,
That silence in the stare just killed me. I couldn't stop laughing. And then you went
yeah,
on to walk to this old amusement park that
yeah.
never took shape.
And we
Um,
should say that this all takes place in Indonesia.
correct, correct,
Yeah,
not New Jersey.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Go ahead, Ed.
Go ahead, go
Sorry.
tell us about the show if you can.
Well, I guess we should first say that I'm not residing in the United States. About almost 2 years ago, I left, and I've only been back for a couple of months in that time, and I'm living in Southeast Asia, not doing a whole lot of stuff, occasional recording work when I get it, and I was looking for other ways to spend my time and maybe bring in a little extra, little extra money. So I experimented with doing a blog in my room, just talking about the expat experience, and that was kind of boring. And then somebody suggested, why don't you take a camera outside? And I'd had that idea before, but the video editing was so labor intensive, it just scared me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have one of the reasons I left the U.S. is I have some chronic neck and sinus issues that were making work difficult. So I wanted to sort of semi-retire for a while to see if I could get rid of them.
Right.
And so hunching over a computer for a long time wasn't really that attractive. But when I went out and did it, it was so much more interesting than me talking in my room, and I realized that I have a kind of an unusual life over here because most people when they come here, I'm in Cambodia right now, but I
Right.
divide my time between a lot of different countries in Southeast Asia, and
Xin
it's
chào.
pretty much what's that?
Xin chào. Is that how
I
you
don't know
say
what
it?
that means.
I think it means hello in
Oh,
Vietnamese.
that's Thai. That's you're right. Yeah, that's
Xin
Vietnamese.
chào,
Yeah,
xin
that's
chào.
right. It's one of the languages I don't know.
Yeah, it's one that I don't know either.
Yeah. When I was there, I learned Sinkaman, which is thank you, and that's about it.
Right.
Um, but most people, when they come to Southeast Asia, or most places when they expat, it's a little bit of the flip side of what we see in America sometimes when immigrant communities just kind of stay in their own little bubble.
Right.
And we do that too when we go to other countries, and our interactions are a little bit limited with the locals. I mean, obviously we do interact, but it's more kind of like, carry my bags. How much is this? You might have a few local friends or whatever. Whereas when I'm over here, I try to go local as fast as I can. I mean, I don't go completely local. I still have air conditioning and hot water and the things that are considered luxuries over here. So
It's a
I
little
don't
humid
want to.
over there.
And I don't. When I say go local, I mean there's so many more steps to going local than I have taken, that it's a little like saying you're Jimi Hendrix when you could play a little guitar.
That's right.
I don't want to overstate that. Um, but I try to learn the language. I just get into interactions with local people as quickly as I can.
Mhm.
And I've always had sort of a lack of fear of making a fool of myself. And that has really served me well here, because that kind of persona, oh, hang on, sorry. That
Sure.
kind of persona in America, uh, culturally for me has been a problem. I have kind of a quirky personality, and people in America, we're a little bit of a fear-based culture. That's something I see very clearly now that I've left. And
Right.
so if I'm interacting with people that doesn't fall into a clearly designated set of known behaviors to them, they are going to get scared. And so I have learned to just completely edit everything I say and do in America,
Hmm.
which is fine, but I got bored with that over time,
Right.
especially now that we've become such a partisan and culturally divided country. It's like if you're not doing one thing, you must be doing the other, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And,
Completely.
and yeah, and I also got frustrated with that, because to me, there's a synthesis that has not taken place in our culture, where people go, oh, I have to live with you even though I don't agree with you. I have to live with you even though I don't agree with you.
Hmm.
So what are we going to do about it, right?
Right. Hmm.
So anyway, to
That.
me, that's what's interesting to me, is what comes after all this stuff. And so I got very bored and fed up with the U.S. for a number of reasons. And
Hmm.
and when I came here, I found that people were not evaluating me in the way Americans do, but they were just going, "Is this a good guy or not a good guy?"
Correct. But yeah, you're exactly right. In fact, I spent some time in Nairobi, in Kenya,
Mm,
and I felt that same thing. I never felt judged at all. All I felt was
mm-hmm,
generosity,
mm,
not a whole lot of butt sniffing going on. People kind of if you have a friendly face, they tend to approach you.
yeah,
Unlike some of the big cities where everyone's just looking down.
yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
get
that's
that.
very true. I mean, and we're rambling off the topic, but one thing that strikes me every time I come back to Los Angeles is how you walk down the street and you smile at somebody and their face just locks.
Hmm.
I will not smile back at you, and you're made to feel that because the idea is that you're smiling because this is the culture in the LA. You must have an agenda.
Right.
You must be hitting on me. You must want to start a conversation so you can get money from me. And there's some of that here too. I don't want to say that everything's perfect or anything. There's
Hmm.
all, but the cultural expectation is, you smile, people smile back. Oh, okay, you're
Right.
not going to kill me. That's the tribal meaning of a smile.
Yeah,
So
as opposed to being the cultural equivalent of a panhandler, in Los Angeles,
yeah,
you're treated that way. I've met
yeah,
some good people and some just really unusual people as far as trying to engage someone, say on the side of the street when you're waiting to cross the road and you see
hmm
and you just see them look straight ahead, and I'm thinking, wow, that's different.
yeah. That had started to really get to me, because it started to well, once I left and went to Asia and saw how different it was. I used to take it really personally,
Hmm.
but when I got back, I just started laughing at it,
Yeah.
because it was just like, you realize how ridiculous this is. This is completely unnecessary,
Yeah.
and it's a sort of a microcosm of, to me, where our culture has gone. And I prefer. I mean, I have my political preferences, so do you.
Hmm.
But when I talk about these things, I prefer to try to look at what's something that we can talk about that applies to everybody?
Right.
What's a starting point where we can go, okay, what's going on here? Because we never do that anymore, right?
No, we sure
And
don't.
one of the things, excuse me, that I see in America from leaving is this sense of disconnection. Everybody's in their own bubble, and I'm not just talking about political bubbles. I'm talking their individual bubble, and we don't realize, because this is a part of first world living, and unlike some of the European countries, we don't have we don't have a more communal culture, right? So we have sort of the economic privilege, most of us, to have our lives kind of the way we want them, and even if we don't, we're told that's how we should have it, right? And we don't really have to deal with anybody else, and we don't have a lot of social interactions. And in fact, I think that's one of the reasons we've become so politically polarized, is that's displaced going bowling with people or playing board games with people or whatever.
Right. Great point.
Yeah, and where you kind of go, because I've had to get over this here. I mean, one of the reasons I left the U.S. was I got issues with everybody, and I didn't want to have bar fights every night. Even with people I agree with, I have issues with the reasons why I agree with them. And so if you're out of step with your culture, you can't change everything, right?
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but here, I'm not in America. So if people have an opinion about American politics, or this person, that person, I got to kind of put that in the back, because my survival is the first priority here, and having friends I can trust. And if they have crazy ideas that I think might be crazy, fine, but how are they to me? And that's how our culture used to be. When I was growing up, people thought stuff and they believed stuff or whatever, but at the end of the day, is this guy going to help get your car out of the ditch or not? So
I mean, and also, I think the whole idea of what we become, and this translates also to the kind of the musical realm too. You'll see these bubbles in groups and bands, and it's kind of always been there. But you also notice that the same frustration you felt when you were living here. I know that you felt that same frustration when you were touring and just trying to get through to some door guy or the bar manager or the club owner or something. Hey, look, man, I can't stick around till 2 p.m. We got to hit the road and get going here. Especially, I mean, if you're headlining and you're hanging out after, that's fine. But you're such a bear for the schedule. I noticed that you're so organized when I was bumping into you up there in Sacramento. I'm like, man, Adam, you just didn't want to talk. You're like, let's get this thing packed, and then maybe we could have a little chit chat afterwards. But no, I admire that because that's lacking. That's sorely lacking in sort of the work ethic with musicians nowadays, and that's neither here nor there. I think that's what we've become as a people, on a grand scale here, and it's really sad. And I get why you're comfortable over there.
It's and we never talked about the show. But anyway, so the show Adam walks around, like, if anyone's still listening, it's a YouTube show where I basically. It's sort of a twist on the travel shows, something like Anthony Bourdain would have done, but it's a lot goofier and less organized, where I basically sort of just walk into local areas where tourists don't generally go and talk to them.
Yeah, and situations.
That sounds very boring, but it's not.
No, I can assure you it's not. I mean, you even had a chat with a fisherman on the way down to the park there.
Oh, he was delighted. Was Bali, right? Didn't he have a great voice? I loved his voice, the way he spoke English. It's like, my name is Surya.
Yeah, that was beautiful. It's
Yeah.
like he was on a
So
white horse or something, you know. But
yeah, he had a great. I would hire him for voiceover. He had a great, even
yeah,
though he was really
it
cool.
was perfect.
Um,
Yeah, you'll have to
yeah,
check
'cause-
out that show.
so here in Southeast Asia, it's not like people are um, like in America. I don't know how I would do the show because people would be like,
Yeah.
"Why do you have the camera in my face? And who the hell are you?"
Hmm.
But here, people are like, "Whoa, here comes a foreigner, and he can speak a little of their language. He wants to talk to me. That's interesting. Let's do that."
Right.
Because they're not used to having this happen either. They have all these foreigners living around, or sometimes they don't. Sometimes I go
Right.
places where I'm the only white person. You know,
Right.
um,
And they just light up though. The girl
mostly
with the
they do.
guitar.
Yeah, yeah. They really. And that's what's exciting about it is to bring it back to what we were just talking about.
Mhm.
My work as a music producer was quite isolating. And I
Mhm.
used to be very gregarious and I used to play a lot and I don't mind the time in my room. I don't
Yeah.
mind being alone, but when it's done, I want to go out and hang out with people. Well, I found in LA for years that it just became impossible because I'm an older guy. So most of my friends are busy with their stuff.
Hmm.
Um, it's considered very inappropriate for you it's bordering on creepy for you to mix with people that are still socially active who are a lot younger than you are.
You become that
Um,
guy.
you become that guy, and it's funny because here where that, I mean, it's sort of notorious that,
Yeah.
that people date people a lot younger than they are. But one of the things that you come to understand when you're here is there just isn't that sense of separation between generations.
Mhm.
And our culture, again, didn't used to be that way either. And there are a lot of things that young people benefit from being around older people and vice versa.
Right.
And so there are, and I'm not talking about dating here. I mean, obviously that's a byproduct of it, and you can feel the way you want about it. But
Hmm.
the actual social mixing, you're free here to hang out with people that are of different generations. There's even one scene in one of my shows where there's a lot of scenes with kids, because kids have a lot of um, autonomy to do what they
Hmm.
want to do. They are supervised sort of from a distance, but so it's
Yeah.
not complete, But I walked up to a bunch of kids um, playing with kites. I started asking them about the kites, and they're all excited. Oh, the kites are like this, and hey. And if you did that in the U.S., there'd be the cops calling, "Why are you talking to
No,
these
yeah,
kids?"
yeah.
The kids would be like stranger danger, blah 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 blah.
You're registered now.
Yeah, and
Hey.
and look, the thing is, I don't want to minimize the danger to children here or to
Hmm.
there. I mean, that's a very real thing, and there's a reason we don't do things that way anymore. But the thing that you see is we lose something as well. The
Right.
kids lose. They are safer, but they lose a certain intrepid nature that kids
Right.
have. And I'm inspired by the kids over here because they're just like, they'll just walk right up to you like, hey, they want to talk English. They're curious about you.
Hmm.
And it's one of the many things that's different here. So to bring it back to my
A
original
lack of
point,
real anxiety, right?
yeah, exactly. So to bring it back to my original point,
Yeah.
like, sorry, everybody that's still listening.
No, it's great
Um,
because this really outlines the show and the whole vibe behind the show too. I
yeah,
think.
when I'm done here and I'm done with my computer, and if the rain stops because it's rainy season here, I can walk down the street, and there will be people that I've made friends with here that will be happy to sit and
Yeah.
talk to me and gab for 10 or 15 minutes. I can go into some places, feel totally welcome. Hey, how you doing? Where everybody knows your name, or I can just meet somebody new. That
Mm.
is available to varying degrees. It does depend a little from country to country, but that's available most places I go. And there may be some small towns like that in the US too. I don't mean to say everything's like LA, but even then, if I was an
Hmm.
outsider going into a small town, there would be a
Right.
lot of suspicion, you know. And if I was an outsider going into a big city, there would be a different kind of suspicion.
Hmm.
So it's very difficult to just get up and go out and make friends. And here it's easy. I was bored and lonely in the U.S. for many years, and I rarely am here. And
Hmm.
even when I have a bad day here, it's just the same stuff
Yeah,
that I
and
had
you get
bad
that
days with in the
feedback
U.S.
too. Yeah, yeah, and you get that
Yeah,
feedback. It's sort of that, it's one level of communication where there's it's a response. I was a counselor for a while, and I was part of the whole thing is the inhale and exhale of communication, and
hmm hmm
it's so present over there for you, and I could tell, when I'm watching your program that yeah, there is less anxiety, and people are more engaging, and the smiles are genuine, and it's not someone's 15 minutes, it's just wow, this
yeah,
is fun, and they do have their big dreams, and you could tell,
yeah,
what's your
yeah,
Instagram, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean it's really beautiful, and I wish we could regain that because I had that as a child, as well,
yeah.
you know.
Well, I think the thing that's very difficult about this, and this is sort of going back to talking about the political polarization
Hmm.
and sort of my relationship to that, is um, being a partisan or any belief system that
Hmm.
you ascribe to. And I'm not putting down anybody's
No.
beliefs or political, but I'm just saying, as a general rule, you're given sort of a set of ways to look at the world.
Hmm.
And one thing I have really come to see from being outside the US, and I felt this way before I left, but I've really seen it proved out, is that stuff is convenient to one set of people.
Hmm.
Whatever it is that you believe that you think is the whole world to you, it's
Right.
not.
Right. Completely
And
agree.
so when you're here, you realize that all the stuff that we bring to this is not necessarily relevant to the people here. One thing I have learned about our partisan divide is it's completely artificial. Liberals are right, conservatives are right,
Hmm.
liberals are wrong, conservatives are wrong.
Hmm.
It's I
Right.
see that proof here every day because the world's a complicated place
Yeah.
with a lot of moving parts. And if you choose to look at one segment of it that's convenient to you, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
And here, where people have a very different set of needs, they're not looking at it the way you are. You know,
Hmm.
I got hip to this very quickly when I got here because one of the first things, I don't even know if I should go here, but one of the first things I had to deal with is, am I one of these creepy middle-aged guys that goes to Southeast Asia? And the
In the back of your
with
mind
this,
the whole time, are they thinking
yeah,
this?
yeah, well, or what am I thinking? I mean, it's more important to me. Who am I? Like
Right.
what's my motivation for being here? And it's like I said, I very quickly came to understand that I was asking the wrong question
Hmm.
because I was bringing the cultural way we look at that into this environment. And the people here care about a different set of stuff.
Right.
And the real question for them is, if I walk around this culture like it's broken glass and I can't touch anything, or I must be sensitive all the time, or
Hmm.
whatever. No, people, yeah, that's cool, but maybe they want you to buy a T-shirt. That's
Right.
what they want.
Right.
Or if I go around and I'm just willy nilly, you know, acting poorly, let's say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the,
That's a good way to
the
put it.
the issue with that is, are you not, what is your act? Like, are you dating somebody your culture legally that your culture would say is inappropriate, or
Hmm.
are you doing some other thing that your culture is, it's not forbidden but it's frowned upon, right?
Right.
Well, the question is, how are you treating the people in the culture you're in?
Hmm.
According to their needs, and are they real people to you? You know,
Right.
or are they just this sort of backdrop to your adventure? You
Right.
know,
Exactly. It's just these characters are,
yeah, yeah,
stand-ins with bit parts and
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and a little of, I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I mean, if you're a tourist, you're coming for 2 weeks or whatever, backdrop away. They don't care. They just want your money. It's no problem. But um, it's that thing where it's like you're asking the wrong question,
Right.
and I quickly realized it was all about how I engage with people,
Mm-hmm.
how I treated people in terms of their needs,
Right.
and giving myself the leeway, something else we've lost in our culture, to make mistakes, because people here understand that you make mistakes and you do dumb things, and they're much less quick to offend. In
Mm-hmm.
general, there are exceptions, but they're like, well, this guy's not from around here. He doesn't know any better. He's an idiot white guy.
The
So
village idiot here. He's
we'll cut him some slack, and also because I found that people give me a lot of leeway just because I'm willing to crawl into their sandbox and go, okay, well, I'm the idiot here. I'm
Right.
going to speak, I'm not making you speak English. I'm going to speak your language badly.
Mm-hmm.
And then give you the chance to kind of laugh at me, you know.
Right.
Like one of the things I struggle with on the show, I wouldn't say struggle with, but sometimes, I'll put stuff in because someone will say something, in English that I know Americans will think is hilarious,
Right.
And
Love
I
the
mean,
subtitles.
yeah, or not. Or, there was like the guy at the park who's very abashedly trying to get me to bribe him to let me in.
Uh-huh.
That after that, he's my best friend, and he's sort of like almost like in the 30s when there were racial stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
The way he interacted with me, and it was actually very funny.
Right.
And I left it in because there's nothing wrong with it. But if I made the show about that,
Right. Different
like look
story.
at all the funny bad English things the locals do, that would be really wrong.
Right.
It is, as an element to the show, is just something that, just one of the many things that happens. To me, it's perfectly fine. It's part of reality. But what I like about doing the show is I'm the dummy. I mean, it's like Peter Tork and the Monkees. I'm the dummy.
Yeah, I'm the dummy.
Um,
But it works so well though, because okay, here's what you are. You become kind of a fixture in the episodes that I've seen. There are people who recognize you, who remember you from previous trips, and
in the
but I
Bali
noticed
ones,
there
yeah.
was right, and I noticed there was never the tourist master servant relationship that a lot of people have when they come into areas like that or go vacation. These people are at my service.
I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you said that, because that was, I mean, when I first got here and went to Bali, that was the thing that really struck me. Is in Ubud, which is a wonderful place, and I don't want to upset anybody that goes there and enjoys it, but I'm about to go into that environment for the show. And one of the sort of subtexts of that is exactly what you said. When I first got there, there were so many tourists from the U.S., Europe, some from more privileged Asian cultures, and it was just the same as L.A. People kind of walking down the street, don't look at me, don't touch me, don't,
Right.
and they're kind of bringing that bubble with them, And in Bali, that part of Bali, those people are attracted to it because they can get a nice villa and they can be peaceful and it's quiet and more power to them, But that's not actually the local culture, which is, this really hit me when I first started expatting there, after I'd stopped being a tourist, and I was kind of looking at living in Ubud, and I went into a coffee shop there, and I started talking, and I have a loud voice, so I mean, I wasn't necessarily in the right here. I'm not trying to say that, but I was just talking to this woman behind the counter in Indonesian, and you could tell she was just delighted that there was somebody, shooting the shit. And then this Australian guy, all roided out, mate, could you keep it down? Like, a lot of us come here just to relax and chill out. And
you gave him the
and
same look you gave the camel.
No, I didn't, because he was right. Because I was kind of being noisy.
Well,
Part of this is you got to kind of consider your own fault. That's another thing I don't like about our culture. It's like, oh, God forbid we look at ourselves, right?
yeah, but that's kind of a 50-50 thing.
That's the other thing, and I actually kind of engaged with him a little bit. And she said, I'm sorry, I have a really loud voice. Thank you for bringing that up. Which he hated. He didn't even want to talk to me after that. But what was interesting, what was interesting was that you could see all the people behind the counter just got really sad as soon as this exchange had happened. And and I was kind of deflated, and I'm sitting there, and then somebody whispered on the way to me, come back tomorrow,
Yeah, that's great.
But the thing is, the locals, they wanted to shoot the shit. They wanted the kind of goofy Rodney Dangerfield kind of guy to start the party, but the Bushwood Country Club had taken over the wood. And it's okay. I'm not putting down people that go there and do that, but as sort of an outside observer to it, the human, the people there are sort of come in a distant second to bring in your bubble and looking at the nice stuff.
Right.
And it's exactly what you said, that when I came to Asia, the first thing I decided is this is not going to be master servant at all. I'm going to go in as much as possible and deal with people on their level, while understanding that I am not. I mean, the thing I want to avoid is, well, I'm local and the Balinese are my best friends, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm a rich guy coming in from out of town who doesn't spend that much money because I'm not that rich, right? That's who I am.
Right.
That's the reality of it. But within that understanding that you're never going to be a local, but what you can be is an honest friend and somebody that treats people with respect and doesn't sort of play that card, then you can have a completely different relationship with people.
Yeah.
It has downsides. It doesn't always work. I do piss people off from time to time, but in general, it's just like you saw on the show. You go out. Here I am. I'm an idiot white guy. What are you going to do with me? And people mostly treat me with generosity and humor, and that's what the show's kind of about. And through that, hopefully make some, subtle points about the differences in cultures. I don't want to ram my perspective down anybody's throat, because most of my perspective is just the world's bigger than you think it is. Don't get so caught up in the one way you're looking at it.
Right. Exactly.
Because there's, like I said, people in our political divide. If I could be reductive, this is unfair to a lot of people. So just as a broad stroke, maybe there's some on the right that are not as compassionate to these people as they might be.
Right.
And there might be some on the left who are almost looking at them as sort of children to be saved, And not everybody, I don't want to. I'm just saying, as a sort of caricature, there are people like that.
Yeah.
The people, when you get down to dealing with people, they're people like everybody else, and they got things that they care about. The stuff that you believe, the way your relationship to people that are underprivileged or from other cultures or whatever, that's really about you.
Yeah.
That's your deal.
It is, and you go to countries with the mindset that you're going to Disneyland. These are different flavors I'm experiencing. So Jamaica's a great example of that, and I'll be brief about it. But it's like walking around the neighborhoods and getting to know the locals in Jamaica, or staying on the resort the whole time because it's safer. And you're really not getting a grasp of the whole, every life, and the personalities and the people and how they live day to day, and understanding, wow, they're just like us. And it's not, I'm not saying that in sort of a politician, sort of way. It's just like we're all humans, and we all
Yeah,
have different lives, and we operate in differently, good people, bad people, no matter where you go. But it's
yeah.
what you really highlighted on this show is just um the goodness, and your edits are just like spot on.
Oh,
I'll have
thank
to
you.
say, for comedic effect, I was a big fan of The Gods Must Be Crazy when it came out,
Oh,
just
that's a
because the
great
way they
movie.
split that up. Yeah, and
Yeah.
even number two, Electric Boogaloo, I think it was. They did the same thing where it was just these perfectly timed edits. But what you do is you capture this the sense of wonder. They see the camera and they're like,
Uh,
wow, this is their little portal to the rest of the world, and
yeah.
being a part of it,
Well, yeah, I especially got that in the Philippines. I mean, I was so excited to do the show there. That was one of the big reasons I did it because nobody goes there
No.
unless they're, I mean, perverts, priests, and business. No, I shouldn't say that. Cut. No,
Or
I'm
Navy.
kidding. Sorry, Filipino
I'm gonna
FM. I
put a
don't mean that.
commercial right there.
Yeah,
But
no, that was more reductive than I want to be.
no,
But it's
I
not a
totally know.
it's not a big tourist place, and it does tend to attract a lot of people that go there for sex, people that
Yeah.
go there to proselytize.
Yeah, I was in
And,
Subic Bay and in Olongapo, and then I
yeah.
went up
Oh,
to
yeah.
Manila, and it was a totally different story. And
Yeah.
and but man,
And
some
for
some
business, I wanted to
funny
get that
places.
in. It's the yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Go ahead.
No, no, you're right. But yeah, finish your point though. But I totally see where you're coming from with the
Well, it's
Filipinos.
not a tourist country, is what I'm
Mm.
getting at. And the people that go there either go there for a very specific set of well, they go there for a very specific set of reasons usually.
Mhm.
So you don't have the thing you have in Bali and to a lesser extent here in Siem Reap where I am right now, where there's sort of a built-in okay, there's tourists coming in and we have an interface for that.
Mhm.
There's the Philippines is just kind of like you're here.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah. Wait.
Well,
Yeah,
you know.
is this is it, you're stopping here to move on to
Yeah, and then once people realize you're just here because you want to be there, they're like, "Oh my God, really?
right.
Well, sit right down here."
Well, let's eat.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
and so it was such a great place to shine the light on because the country has such a bad reputation between
Right.
the government there now,
Right. Right.
and what I referred to earlier,
Red tape.
even other countries in Asia kind of look down on it. And I remember when I talking to some guy in Bali about all the places he's been, and I mentioned I was in the Philippines. He goes, "I won't go there. That place scares the crap out of me." But for me, it was the first place I fell in love with. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
you grew up in the projects. You can go anywhere, but you can always go back to the projects. Not
Right.
to put the Philippines down.
No,
Again,
no.
I'm being more reductive than I want to be. It's actually a wonderful country.
Oh,
Um,
just the entertainment and the people and the loads of musical talent over there. It's
the people,
ridiculous. Yeah.
the Filipino people, I just they're my favorite people in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
The culture is nuts,
Yeah.
basically on some very basic level. I mean, but in a beautiful way.
Hmm.
It is a little bit like upside down world. And if you first interact with the Philippines, you could be like, what just hit me? You know, this, this place is just, I got to go crawl in a hole for a while because
Yeah.
this is nuts.
Yeah. This is
But
an infinite
once you get,
celebration.
I have a hard time staying there for a long time.
Yeah.
It's a tough place to live in a
Hmm.
lot of I don't think the locals would disagree.
Hmm.
It's just a lot of time spent by Filipinos trying to leave the Philippines.
Right. Right.
Um, but it is never boring there. At least for me, I'm sure there's a lot of local people that get bored, but there's just so much energy
The level of action, yeah, it's just it's almost overwhelming when you first get there. You're just
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
it's
because
like a
you've been there,
bazaar
right?
in Casablanca where they just show they throw in all the extras they could throw in
Yep,
and make this busy this busy landscape. You have cars
yep,
everywhere, and these rickshaw motorcycle cars and
yep, yep,
muffler
yep.
burns and everything you find.
Yep. Yeah.
But
So yeah,
outstanding.
it's a it's I'm out of things to say, maybe.
No, I mean it's great. You painted a beautiful picture of it, and it's very accurate. Take it from me. I mean, I didn't spend as much time as you did over there. It was just a matter
I
of weeks.
probably spent more
It
than
was
a
enough.
year in the Philippines now. Yeah, actually, as I think about it. Um, yeah, yeah, it was just cool to go somewhere where there weren't really any tourists, and there was an extra level of sort of shock that you were going there, and also, in the Philippines, I took a lot of chances. Because that's not the safest country in the world, and I would just kind of, there's the episode 6, Under the Bridge.
Hmm.
I basically walked into a squatter community,
Oh, geez.
and a lot of the people were just like, their eyes were just popping out, like, what is this guy doing here, and my local friends were just like, you went where,
Yeah.
but the thing is, it wasn't quite as dangerous as it appeared to be. First of all, because it was broad daylight. I mean, if it had been nighttime, I probably would have been in a lot of trouble. And there's a later episode that takes place entirely at night where you do actually see me kind of have a freak out, because
Yeah.
I had my laptop took a dump, and I had a very limited amount of time to deal with it.
Mhm.
And I had to continually walk through the same bad neighborhood like 4 or 5 times in the course of an evening, with my laptop on my, with a lot of money in my laptop on my person. So if anything had happened to me, I had to, I would have been toast.
Oh man.
But
Oh man.
but but in general, you're actually in more danger in the tourist places, because these people don't even have time to react. They're just like, why is this guy here? They're not sitting there waiting to stab you,
Right.
because
I'm
they
sure.
don't know
I'm
you're.
sure the majority of them were just stunned that this guy's just kind of
Yeah.
making his way through the area there. What'd
Well,
you
I think
lose?
a lot of it is people just look at me and go, this guy can't possibly be this stupid. So there's a lot of, like, because people don't know what to make of me.
Right.
And because I can speak a little of the local language, I think even when I meet kind of bad people, they kind of go, we better leave this guy alone,
Yeah.
because he's sort of an X factor.
He's just
we
trying.
don't
He's
we don't know
trying.
what his deal is. We can't classify him. So he might know somebody important. Let's not kill him. So I do think once or twice that saved me, but
Yeah.
mostly I feel less safe in the States, to be
Hmm.
honest. Because you have a heavily armed country, you have a lot of people that are just really wound up, and everybody is just a very rigid sense of their personal space, which manifests, again, differently across the political spectrum. But in general, you gotta watch your step every
Yeah. I
minute in
mean,
our culture.
yeah, fight or flight. I mean, there's situations where you're thinking on both sides. They label a certain look, or they label a certain swagger or whatever, and
Yeah,
then you'll walk by someone and immediately assume, hey, this guy's gonna crack me in the head with a board or something,
yeah.
and you do, and that again, this is where the anxiety comes from, and I think it's something we can completely avoid, or mostly avoid, by
Hmm.
adopting these like you said, these kind of communal practices where you have
Yeah.
these families and friends together for generations, and you see it in the old neighborhoods on the East Coast too. I was born in New York, and
Yeah.
you see it in the old neighborhoods like that too. But and you go over 3 blocks and it's completely different. But
The hard thing about that, and you see it over here, and this is the question I can't answer. You know, um, that tends to follow economic privilege.
mhm.
A guy I know in Indonesia said something that really dovetailed with my own observation. He said, "Poor people stick together, and then when people get money, that sort of dissolves."
Mhm.
So that the tough thing about this, and I don't have an answer to it, but once you get some money, you start to have the ability to arrange your life the way you want. And once you
Right.
get enough money, you can start to arrange other people's lives the way you want.
Mhm.
And then you get to the situation we're seeing now, where you have some people have so much money that they're starting to manipulate the whole world. you know.
Right. Good point.
And
I didn't really think of it that way. I'm kind of the libertarian
mhm,
centrist guy with with a liberal's heart, and I have that fiscal conservative sensibility to keep myself alive.
mhm,
But no, you're exactly right, and that's what happens. It tends to happen, and very rarely
yeah,
will you see people actually use their quote unquote powers for good.
yeah.
There's this sense of detachment. Uh, it can be
Well,
lonely, for them, but that's no excuse.
well, what's funny is there used to be we've lost a lot of very good cultural benchmarks that used to keep us kind of between the rails.
Hmm.
Like when I was when I was a kid, and I was raised in a very liberal time by sort of broad-minded parents. I wouldn't call them liberal. They were sort of liberals that turned conservative a little
Right.
bit, if that makes sense. So I
Hmm.
got exposed to both ideas, and but there were things that were nonpartisan. We had the idea of fairness, right?
Hmm.
Giving the devil his due, like giving somebody credit for making a point that you didn't like,
Right.
or sorry, I'm blanking on what I wanted to say. Uh, but there was an idea that you had responsibilities to your
Hmm.
culture.
Right.
You know, we didn't say we didn't think of personal freedom solely as I get to do whatever I want,
Right.
and anything that I'm being asked to do for anybody else is an infringement on my rights, right?
Right.
And but going back to the 19th century, we had a similar situation where a lot of the wealth was very concentrated.
Hmm.
And even going back before then, and there were a lot of abuses at that time, and I don't mean to belittle them, but there was something called noblesse obligée,
Hmm.
which was an understanding that if you have a lot of money, then you have a responsibility to uplift your society in some way. Now, people did it in ways that were convenient to them. Like some of the robber barons in the late
Hmm.
19th century were pretty horrible, but they also built a lot of libraries and made great contributions to the development of our country.
Hmm.
So, this whole thing of wealth concentrating and everything, that's always been a deal. That's always been an issue. But culturally, the idea that the whole greed is good thing, you know,
Yeah.
that's that's come up from time to time in our culture and in other cultures. It doesn't end well
Hmm.
because there has to be a give and take in society. I mean, that's the point of the whole deal. That you see here in these cultures, people understand you don't get everything you want. You have to deal with other people at all times, and so you just have to make the necessary compromises to live.
Right. Keep the wheels rolling,
Right.
and you're exactly right. I mean, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
We
And when
don't.
you get
Nobody
more
wants to
money, you
be
can.
forced to do anything,
Yeah.
and I think that's where we take this immature 9-year-old stubborn brat approach to things, where
Yeah.
you know I'll do it, but
Right.
don't tell me to do it,
Yeah.
it's kind of the wrong way of thinking.
Well, that's the thing about that comes with economic privilege that I've seen is the more that you have, you're able to get your own way. The more you detach from other people, because interacting with other people is scary for all of us.
Hmm.
If some more than others for sure. But if you don't have to, and you can kind of buy your way into a situation that's comfortable for you, that in its own way becomes its kind of drug. And taken too far, and social media helps with this too. Where we're interacting with people, but we're alone in our room typing.
Right.
Um, and we're dealing with them kind of on the level that we want to deal with them. If someone pisses us off, you say, "Screw you, I'm unfriending you," or whatever, or
Right.
"I'm ghosting you for a month." Again, sometimes it's totally appropriate, but taking things on a sort of a meta level People people are no longer having to deal with one another.
Mm-hmm.
When you're poor, you don't have that luxury, and a lot of things suck. I mean, these people know that their lives suck. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
gloss this over. I mean, people are fully aware, that other people live better than them, but there isn't as much jealousy as you would expect
No,
because
in the
they,
midst of all that, right?
yeah,
You see the
yeah,
smiles, you see the reaching out, the generosity, the selflessness, and
yeah,
that's just beautiful. And I think
yeah,
going back to your show, which you were pretty much talking about, uh,
yeah.
that
I don't want to say
that's a
everyone's lives
huge.
suck. Again, not everybody's lives suck, but I'm
No,
just saying
right,
when
but
people are sleeping in a damp room and there's no aircon and it's really hot, they know it.
yeah.
They're not magically immune to it because they live here.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Not
they're
everyone's
used
happy
to
all
it,
the
but they
time anywhere.
no,
So
no.
yeah, but the beauty of your show, I think, is the fact that you're highlighting this, and it's kind of a lesson to the West. In my opinion, it's kind of a
Hmm.
lesson to a lot of people who have forgotten that or have never experienced it in their lives to say, oh my gosh,
The
like
thing the thing that they have that we don't have, and I don't know if they value it as much as
mhm,
they could because again it's part of their daily life. They have each other. I
yeah,
walk down the street, kids are playing together, kids are flying kites together, men are literally sitting on the corner of the street playing chess.
hmm,
People are sitting around drinking, hanging out. That's a thing everywhere I go.
hmm,
And you think about how rare that is in the U.S., where people, maybe you throw a party once a month and you get all your friends to show up, but people don't. We don't live that way. We go to work, we come home, we've got our family situation. Maybe we got, maybe if we're a little social, we go to a bar or something like that. But we don't just go out, hey, Henry, hey, Sam, oh, let's sit down and have a drink. Okay.
you're right. It takes a
But
lot to get people out nowadays, and if it's
people do that here all
something,
the time
yeah,
because they got
and
nothing, they
outdoors
don't
all
have
the
something to
time.
do.
Again,
Yeah.
back to our
Sorry. I didn't,
childhood, same
yeah.
same sort of
Yeah.
thing. We go out until my dad, whistles and we can hear him from a mile away, and it's time to come home.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see people getting out, but it's this sort of meetup thing, or hey, I'm doing a 5K, or hey,
Yeah.
some sort of cleanup type thing. But then they go back
Yeah.
to their little caves, and they freeze up and then get back on social media and talk about what a great person they are. And some of them
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Well, and not to get too judgmental here.
No,
I mean,
no.
the thing that's really difficult for us to understand, when, we talk a lot about media manipulation.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're just being manipulated. You're just brainwashed by the liberal media, or you're just Putin's brainwashing you or whatever. It's like
Hmm.
that can be totally true. So
Right.
what? you know.
Right.
So and now what? I mean, because you have to acknowledge that possibility in yourself if
Hmm.
you're going to point the finger at other people.
Right.
And at that point, then you can have a conversation. But as long as you keep throwing up these roadblocks, everyone else is being manipulated by me, but me. Well, guess
Yeah.
what? Whatever culture you grew up in, whatever religion you grew up in, whatever state you grew up in, you are a product of that environment. Even if you're reacting against it, there are things in your DNA you don't even realize that are part of that you think is just part of the air. You think everybody's like that. It ain't that way.
Right.
And I see this every time I go back and forth from the Philippines to Indonesia, two very similar countries geographically, radically different cultures.
Hmm.
What's the difference? Well, it ain't the air, it ain't the water, it ain't the weather. It's who conquered them 500 years ago,
Right.
and what happened since then, and same's true in our country.
Hmm.
So it's not it's not me wagging my finger at everybody going how horrible our culture is. We can't help it, but what we can do is stop thinking about it like this is the way it is, this is the way it's always going to be, and there's no other way it can be, there's no other possibilities, which is kind of where we've wound up
Right.
culturally.
And our tendency
Regardless
toward
of
the lowest common denominator, and
yeah, Yeah, we no longer. I mean, we're so stuck on our religious and political prerogatives. We don't cherish new ideas, a new way of thinking. We every problem can't be solved because we can only look at this range of options.
Right.
And if you think about it, that's crazy.
Can we get back
Not,
to that? I mean, can we get back to that? And what's
I
got to
don't.
give?
Unfortunately, I don't see a very good future for the
Mhm.
states. I hope I'm wrong.
Mhm. I
But
hope you are too.
there's been a lot of attention paid to look how terrible the politicians are, look how terrible the media are.
Mhm.
Yeah, granted, okay, but who's that? Who's not part of that equation?
Mhm.
Us. We're so busy looking at, oh, that guy over there's a jerk, or he's a crazy liberal, or he's a Trump
Mhm.
supporter, or she's a Trump supporter, or whatever. And some of that is richly deserved, but in general, what I've been watching happening for my entire adult life is people no longer want to consider their own part of the problem.
Mhm.
Even people that are to use an overused term, woke. And
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a derogatory way, because
Mhm.
I have a lot of respect for that concept, actually,
Mhm.
because of the things I've experienced. But even then, there's a certain level of self-convenience to the things you want to be woke to. You
Mhm.
see what I mean?
Mhm.
Which I see here in Cambodia a lot, actually, because there's so many NGOs coming in here. There's a point where you have to go. I I'm I'm a part of the problem, and that's okay, because it allows me to forgive this next guy over here who's also part of the problem, and start a conversation.
Right. Great point.
Yeah, but the problem is we are so wound up now and there are forces that are keeping us wound up for their own reasons, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And a lot of people see that, but again, they cast it in terms of, but it's that side that's doing it. It's that side that's doing it. Yeah, maybe, but who brought that concept into our culture?
Right.
Um, we've bought into that to such a degree that we can no longer talk about things. Just you don't have to agree with somebody. You can even think somebody's a pig, right?
Right.
But they do have a point of view
Mhm.
that is relevant to their experience,
Right.
which you don't have.
Comes from
And
somewhere.
yeah, and that's the part of it that we've lost. The idea that you don't have to agree with somebody, you don't even have to like them, but you do
Right.
have to breathe the same air into you. Or they are part of the country. They have a set of needs that are not necessarily germane to you.
Mhm.
I keep quoting John Boehner. Or is it John
Mhm.
Boehner? I can't remember, whatever his name is. But he was
Painter's Boner
yeah,
quoted.
was the Republican Speaker of the House, I think. And
Yeah, he's
he
gone now.
yeah,
A lo-
and he's selling pot now, I hear, which is
Is he really? That's.
probably I think it's awesome if it's
I think
true.
he's selling
Uh,
VCRs in Texas.
but he said something like, "What's it going to take for people to realize that they're Americans first and not Republicans and Democrats?" And he just said a cataclysmic event.
Mhm.
And I'm afraid that might be the case, because as serious as the problems that we have are, there are bigger problems.
Mhm.
And if you're in a poor country where your survival every day is not guaranteed, you do not have the luxury of ignoring some of these greater realities.
Right.
And there are a lot of struggling people in the States, actually. And life is not great for us, but we do have options that these folks don't have.
Right.
And
Exactly.
one of them is sort of the option to check into our own reality, which doesn't help us solve problems.
Mhm.
Anytime you buy into a situation where, okay, I'm only going to look at things a certain way. Well, like I said before, you've kind of foreclosed all these other ways of solving something. So I don't know how we get past that, because we don't even realize culturally what we've lost. Not just the sense of community that we've talked about,
Mhm.
but the overarching idea that fairness or hearing somebody out is a valuable thing to have. It's what keeps things going. We talk about how horrible politics are, but politics, the definition of it is, how do you get along with other people with differing sets of needs?
Right.
It's by definition a compromise thing. So I worry very much that we've lost a sense of what holds a society together, and the people that are taking advantage of that may inherit the situation do not wish us well, and
right.
And so I, or at least let's put it in a more charitable way. They may not be that good at running the world when they get it, because they themselves have lost this idea too.
Yeah.
So
it's rampant. It's kind of you see it at every level, in government especially. Just down to the local level. I just opened up a distillery in El Centro, California. It's out in the agricultural region out there. Yeah. And everyone just seems to get along out there. It's really great. And the local government there, is you go in and say hi and talk for a half an hour or something like that. And to me, I'm like, man, I wish we could at least just get back to that. But we'll see.
It's going to be very difficult because, and it's a good place to wrap it up. The change doesn't happen. We keep looking at all these outside forces like, oh my God, the media, oh my God. Yeah, okay, but you're buying into that.
Right.
You're buying into the idea that you can have everything your own way. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, that's my, that's my the beginning and end of my political soapbox. That
was a beautiful one.
But it's like I said, I got my political preferences. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like one of these down the middle kind of guys. Yeah. But at the base of it, you've got to understand that you don't control the world. And if you want power, you can't just hold up a sign. You can't just complain about things. You got to do the work, because the people that are manipulating you did, right? So they sort of earned it.
A lot of homework in the background,
This has been going on long enough that I've been spotting it for most of my adult life.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I couldn't deal with sitting around arguing with it. It's like, okay, but this is not an outside phenomenon. You're a part of it, but at the same time, we also just have to live our lives. We can't control the world. We just are where we're at. But I think what every person can do is just get over the idea that their way of looking at things is the beginning and ending of everything.
Right.
And that is this, to me, that's the one thing that when I look at people on their feeds, I'll engage with people sometimes, and it's usually not because I disagree with their viewpoint. It's because I disagree with the way that they're just approaching the whole thing.
Right.
It's like, this is the way it is, and conveniently that's my point of view. And and anything else that might infringe on that is bad. Yeah. I'm like, that's crazy. I might agree with you. Some people, at times, I do agree with people, and I'm like, my issue isn't what you're saying. It's the argument you're using is so stupid. You're invalidating something that's important to me.
Yeah. Exactly. So do you even hear yourself?
But that's the thing. As long as we're shutting ourselves off from the things that can challenge us, right, left, middle, whatever, you're just going to keep going on that bubble. They're just going to keep going in that bubble. Nothing gets fixed. So to me, that's where it starts. Is you have to get over the idea that you're always right.
Exactly.
People think I think that about myself, but I actually spend a lot of time trying to prove myself wrong.
Hey, that's actually pretty healthy.
Anyway, so watch my show. Adam Walks Around.
Thank you so much. There you go. Say it again.
Adam Walks Around on YouTube.
Also, you have a kind of an accompanying blog with I Just Disappear, right?
Yeah, I haven't updated it that much lately. There's a lot of content on it, and
it's great content. It's really good.
Thank you. I haven't abandoned it or anything. It's just less people read it than watch the show, so I put more effort into the show. But it's called I Just Disappear. It's mostly about the expat experience and about music.
It's great. And yeah, so Adam walks around and I just disappear. Check out Adam's work. I mean, he's just done so much, from his days with Cockeyed Ghost and the Chaos Band to working with, Edie Sands and Teresa Cowles and the Standells and gosh, I'm not gonna brag for you or anything, but they could just look you up and just take a look at the work and listen to some of these songs, man. They're great. I like the different phases you went through. And I don't know if that's part of growing or what, but it's really beautiful, man. I'm really glad.
I'm easily bored.
That's it right there. There's a secret.
Except apparently with the sound of my own voice, since we've been going on for an hour now.
I loved every minute of it,
I just
Adam.
don't get to speak that much English. I'm sorry.
It's great.
You're getting the verbal diarrhea here, everybody.
No, it's great. It was wonderful, man. Thank you so much, Adam Marsland.
Thanks,
everyone. We'll see you next time.